Welcome back to Bass Fishing Declassified. Today, we're going to share on if our team members rather finesse fish in the winter or power fish in the winter. Which one they prefer. We're going to talk about why, the conditions, a couple of lures, a couple different areas to fish. Guys, let's go get into it.
There's a pretty good debate about whether you should be fishing finesse tactics or power fishing tactics during the cold water period that we're entering here for the winter. And I got to tell you, I personally like to do both. And I'll show you. One of my favorite baits during this cold time period, especially in northern lakes, is a blade bait. This is just a silver buddy blade bait. But this bait to me is a power fishing finesse bait. So what do I mean by that? Well, it's a heavy piece of metal and lead. So this bait sinks extremely fast and it allows me to cover a ton of water. I can make casts that are extremely long. It sinks right to the bottom. I'll fish it down into 50 feet of water and it maintains very good bottom contact. But once it's down there, I can fish it in a lot of different ways. I can really fish it quick. I can fish it with a good straight retrieve with some stops in it, almost like a lipless crankbait. But at the same time, when I find some fish that are tight to the bottom, I can let this bait just sit at the bottom and I pull it real slow until I feel a little bit of vibration and then let it fall right back down. So I'm only moving it maybe 12 to 18 inches at a time. And I'm really working it almost as if it's a jig on the bottom. But this bait can be a dynamite bait during the cold water period, and it fills the need of both power and finesse. Because I'll tell you, one other thing I love about this is it is a really good search bait for those reasons that I mentioned. And once I identify where the fish are with this, that's when I can drop down to true finesse tactics, whether that's a drop shot or a football jig, something that I can drag on the bottom. But it really fills the void for both finesse and power. And it's one of the baits, the few baits that are power fishing techniques that still get a lot of bites during the coldest period of the year. I'm talking water temps that may be, if you live in the North Country, in December, you're talking low 40s, even 30s, right up until ice up if your lake freezes over. This is one of the few baits that will still generate pretty aggressive strikes from fish. Typically for me, I'm going to be fishing it down more vertical banks, rock banks, rock transition banks, channel swing banks, rock humps, points, places where there's a little bit of rock. Generally, I like to target rock during this time period because that's going to be an area that absorbs heat and holds heat, and it usually is a good wintering location for all species of bass. And this is one of those baits that catches them all. It's not unusual to go to a lake, like say down in Tennessee, you want to like Lake Cumberland, you could catch a largemouth, a spotted bass, and a smallmouth on consecutive casts. That's how versatile this little guy is. So if you're struggling with the idea of only feeling like you need to finesse fish during the winter months, don't forget you can still fish a faster moving bait like this that kind of fills the void of power fishing, but at the same time can be truly a finesse tactic. So give a blade bait a try. This is a Silver Buddy, one of my absolute favorites, one of the most proven blade baits out there. Generally is just known for producing a lot of fish during the cold water period.
Okay, guys, finesse or power fishing? If you know me well, you know my answer. Okay, before I get my answer though, guys, just real quick, I have started my new YouTube channel called The Fishing Coach. I have a bunch of variety of content on there. Appreciate you guys that are following both channels. I'm going to continue to be on Declassified. Also got my podcast, okay? I'm going to put both those in the description. I'll put those on the end screen of this segment as well, okay, guys? But finesse or power fishing? It's power fishing. I could be okay if I don't have finesse rods on my deck. Even though I've been doing more finesse fishing lately, and it is a fun way to catch fish. But in the winter, I'd rather power fish, okay? There's a couple little lures I like to power fish with. It's going to be a lipless crankbait, going to be a flat-sided crankbait, or like a wiggle wart style crankbait. That's the three, right? I just said, yeah, bladed jig in some scenarios, okay? Guys, but one thing is with the power fishing, I always thought in the winter, throw a jig, fish slow, shaky head, and I've learned, right, that you can throw these guys in the winter and fish them fast, and fish still eat, and you catch big fish with these style lures. And one thing that I do, it helps in the winter. You're moving, okay? My personality, I like to move, I like to try, I'm very energetic, and I take that to the water where I'm trying to go. Try to find fish, try to find active fish, okay? And sometimes when I was fishing that jig or your finesse fishing, I mean, you're just fishing one area for a long time, and you may trick them to bite, but it's really hard to trick them to bite. And so with this, you're getting reaction strikes. You're on the go. You're fishing fast, and you're trying to find them group of fish that are just active. Now, in the water temps where I'm at in Arkansas South, there's rare times where water temps get below the 50s. Now, when it does get below the 50s, that 45 to 40 is what I'm talking about. You do have to fish slower. You have to change up how you're fishing your crankbaits. Because I know someone watching this is going to be like, hey man, I can't do what you're talking about in 40-degree water. I know, I get it. But I've had a couple years down here where 48 degrees is the coldest I see. And I will still catch fish where my boat's in 15, 20 foot, throw this up there, reel it, and it's kind of in that 3 to 5 foot zone, and fish are coming up 10 foot and just hammering it, okay? I like to fish, rock, wood, shallow points where there's deep water nearby. Okay, now with that wiggle wart, deeper kind of rock crawler style crankbait, it's not going to be as shallow as it is with these and that flat side crankbait. That's going to be more of your 45-degree banks, rock points, your points maybe that are at 10 to 15, but then drops to deeper water. So those crankbaits I'll go a little deeper off of. And you can still fish rock piles with them too, guys. I haven't talked about that. I kind of keep that quiet, but you can fish rock piles with them. But guys, don't forget about the fishing power in the winter. One thing it does too, it's cold and you get to be moving around, right? You're moving around, you're keeping your body warm. And guys, them fish, they want to stay warm as well, so they're going to move around and eat these dudes. This dude right here has caught some fish, as you can tell. All right, guys, let's go see what the next angler has to say.
Really quick, if you guys enjoy the content in this video and want more personalized instruction, head to our website, fishthemoment.com. Then go to the virtual lessons page. Here you can book one-on-one virtual lessons with each member of the Fish the Moment team. In these 1-hour lessons, the Fish the Moment team member will break down your lake using Google Earth and a contour line map and answer any questions you have. Whether you're preparing for an upcoming fishing tournament or a fun weekend on the lake, make sure you sign up for one of these one-on-one virtual lessons so you're fully prepared to catch as many fish as possible on the water. Check them out at fishthemoment.com.
All right, guys, today's video, in the winter, power fishing or finesse fishing. I like them both. Both are fantastic ways to catch fish in the winter. But today, I'm going to talk to you about what I like to do when I'm going to power fish in the winter. And it's a simple, old fishing 101, baby. It's a big old football jig. The key to this is going real heavy. You're going power fishing, you're going heavy fishing. This is a 3/4 ounce football jig by Motion Fishing. Something about that really quick rate of fall triggers more bites for me, not only in the winter, but all time of year. But a lot of time, there's a lot of people out there finesse fishing, using forward-facing sonar, Jimi rigging, Ned rigging, drop shotting. Try to go big, guys. Go with something with a big old head, 3/4 ounce football jig, Motion Fishing football jig. These skirts are wire tight on here. They ain't falling off. You ain't got that little rubber band that rottens off and you lose your skirt. Green Pumpkin's one of my favorite colors. They have Ozark Illusion. They got a Guild Candy. Those are 3 really good colors. I'm going to pair this thing with a Jean LaRue Salt Craw. Now, the reason for this is in the winter months, I like to have my trailer be really subtle. I don't like a lot of action in it. I like to let those fish eat something kind of cold that just kind of dead sticks. So just a retreating crawdad that ain't going crazy. The water's cold, so things probably aren't moving real fast. So that Jean LaRue Salt Craw, that's going to be my trailer of choice until the fish tell me otherwise. Where am I going to throw this? These fish, in the winter, they're all over the place. They get scattered out. But take this thing and try really shallow round docks. So if you got docks, and I'm talking about like Ozark Lake docks, not the docks that have wood pilings, but even those would work. But your floating lakes, your floating docks that have those shallow floats, those black floats, just a few feet of water right off the bank. Flip that big jig right up there next to the bank, and 2 to 5 foot of water. It's going to fall real fast, and if that fish is there, he'll either have it when you pick it up, or on the first hop, he'll hit it and start swimming with it. They get real shallow in the winter, so don't ignore that. The other great place to throw this is brush piles. It's another place that fish are going to hide and ambush bait. So find your brush piles that are sitting on your main lake points, and on your way back into creeks and stuff, those brush piles are the most likely places to have fish hitting or have fish sitting. And when that big jig falls through there, it's got that nice weed guard. You're not going to get hung up as often, But when it falls through that brush really fast, those fish just react. They swim right to the bottom, they just eat it. So give that a shot. I'm gonna throw a big jig like that on a 7.2. This is a 7.2 Chromium by Kistler. I'll go up to a 7.6. I'm gonna throw heavy action all the time, 17 to 20 pound fluorocarbon, not messing around with that big jig. 7.3 to 1 gear ratio on my Kistler Chromium reel, and get in there, set the hook, pull them in. I hope that catches some bigger fish for you in the winter months. You can get the Gene LaRue salt crawls over at lurenet.com. Use my coupon code Cordiana15. If you guys want to try that motion fishing jig, you can get them over there at motionfishingco.com. Search Motion Fishing Company. Use my coupon code KC15, KC15, get you 15% off these awesome jigs. I hope that helps you guys. See you guys in the next one.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Bass Fishing Declassified, and thanks for joining us for today's video. It's always much appreciated. We are going to be talking about the differences between power fishing and finesse fishing in the wintertime. I'm going to give you guys my preference, what I like to do, and I think it's going to add up to some good fish for you guys by the end of the video here. A lot of this has to do, guys, with the part of the country that you live in, as far as if a finesse technique or power technique is more productive. Because say, for example, if you're fishing in South Texas and you're fishing Lake Falcon, or you're fishing Sam Rayburn Lake or Toledo Bend, maybe even Lake Okeechobee in Florida, in the wintertime, winter is all relative to the part of the country that you're in. So it doesn't really get true winter in those particular geographical regions. And therefore, your power techniques, like your larger lures, like your bigger spinnerbaits, your lipless crankbaits, chatterbaits, are going to continue working throughout the winter time. So that's going to be one sort of outlier there. But what I want to talk about specifically today is just the typical man-made impoundment, sort of more in the temperate areas where there's 4 distinct climate zones in it, where you have a distinct difference between winter, summer, spring, and fall. That probably is more of a representation in most part of the country. Now, when you're talking about that, let's talk, for example, I don't care if you're fishing Clear Lake in California or Bull Shoals Lake in my part of the country, or you're fishing Lake Lanier in Georgia, sort of all the same in this. There's 2 schools of thought on this as far as how you want to approach it, whether you want to downsize, try to finesse them out, or try to power fish. Now, the first thing I want to say with power fishing, most of the time in a traditional man-made impoundment, a typical power technique would be like, crankbait, throwing some type of a larger crawdad pattern crankbait like this rock crawler or wigglewort or something like that, where you're moving, covering water. That would be a power fishing technique for the winter that you definitely can catch some fish on. But what you have to have in order for power fishing to work correctly or work good in the wintertime, you have to have the right set of conditions. You have to have the bass in the right mood and the right personality to actually go after something that's a little bit more aggressive, like a crankbait or a spinnerbait or something like that. Now, the situation is you have to have the right type of weather pattern leading up to when you go fishing. And most of the time, that weather pattern needs to have some type of a prefrontal southerly airflow to it. It's not necessarily that it's got to be warmer, like, warming temperatures, bring the fish up shallow in the wintertime. That's not really a thing. But what you do have to have is you have to have these conditions where, you have the moderate southerly airflow, like a wind 10 to 15 miles an hour out of the south. You have to have some level of cloudiness. It doesn't have to be completely cloudy, but you need to have at least like 50 to 75% cloud coverage. And if you have that combination of cloud coverage and wind, even if the air temperature is not like super warm, this can be a decent time to power fish under those conditions. But there's a small window there. Most of the time, the power fishing, in my opinion, is not going to be near as productive as the finesse fishing unless you get the right set of conditions. And this is even more so when the water temperatures start to bottom out. Let's say, for example, if your water temperature in the lake that you fish, the coldest it gets is, say, 43 degrees in the wintertime. There's a window of like a 5-degree temperature variance where the power techniques are simply not going to work very good. When your water temperatures bottom out or get within 2, 3, 4 degrees of that lower temperature, you're going to find that trying to power fish is not going to be that productive. My favorite way to fish in the wintertime is definitely finesse fishing. And I finesse fish with jerk baits. I use small jerk baits like this Megabass X Nanahan +1 is my favorite finesse jerkbait for the winter time. This thing is a true finesse jerkbait. I get tons of bites on it, catch a lot of good fish on it, and it is a finesse bait that is designed to catch fish under those typical winter conditions when the fish are less aggressive under, doesn't matter what the weather condition is. Most of the time when I'm winter fishing, guys, I either have a finesse jerkbait on like this, or I have a small swim bait, like a 3-inch long swim bait. And I can usually catch fish. I don't care if it's super cold out, if it's bright, if it's cloudy, if it's windy, if the wind's not blowing, whatever. To me, the finesse techniques for winter fishing will produce a lot better day in and day out, unless you have just an exception to the rule. And again, that exception to the rule would be some, very aggressively, some aggressive promoting weather pattern coming in, or if you're further down south, something like that. Also, if you have a lake that has grass in it, even if the water temperature is cold, a lot of times those fish are more conducive to biting power lures than they will finesse lures. So say, for example, if you're fishing Lake Guntersville in Alabama, Lake Guntersville can still get pretty cold. I've fished Lake Guntersville when the water temperature has been in the low to mid 40s there, but you can still catch them on the larger baits like crankbaits and bigger rattle traps and chatterbaits. Something about the grass. The grass has a variable there that does not exist on a rock lake. If you would go, say for example, if we were fishing Lake Guntersville in January and the water was 43 degrees on Lake Guntersville, and it was also 43 degrees up here at Table Rock and on my part of the country, we could probably go to Guntersville and catch them on bigger lipless crankbaits, big spinner baits, chatterbaits, stuff like that. But if you take those same lures up to my part of the country, you'll never get a bite on them. So a lot of it has to do with the species of fish you're fishing for, the way the lake is laid out, and water clarities, and a lot of different variables. Overall, guys, if you're fishing around most part of the countries, you need to go finesse. You get you a little bitty tiny jerkbait like this Mega Bass X Nanahan series, or get you a small swim bait, and you're just gonna get a lot more bites and have a lot more action than you try if you try to power fish them with larger baits like crankbaits and spinner baits and chatter baits. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on it, guys. Hope you all are well. We'll talk later.